What is up, Rockies fans? This is Mac Wilcox, staff writer for PurpleRow.com, and today I'm going to talk to you about pitching, which is my favorite subject in the world to talk about. I know it's one of yours. Specifically, I want to talk about pitch-es. Not pitchers, pitch-es. The Rockies have quite a few different pitchers on their roster, all with a different arsenal, all with a different way of doing things. Today I want to talk about the 5 most effective, my favorite 5 pitches on the Rockies roster. So let's just jump right into it and let's talk about which pitches I am most excited to see in the 2023 season. Number 1, Justin Lawrence's slider. Justin Lawrence has had some up and down success at the big league level, especially in 2022, where he got a little bit lit up at the end of the season. But I tell you what, between his 2 pitches, his sinker and slider combination, his slider is legit. Last year, he threw it 341 times for an average of 193. That's compared to his 422 sinkers, which were given up an average of 337. Justin Lawrence, especially with that hitch delivery he has, throwing his right arm all the way to the side and having that slider cut across a batter, especially right-handed batters cutting low and away. When that pitch is on, it is disgusting. The land of Panama, which is christened to him by one of my staff writer buddies, Evan Lang, has looked great when that pitch is working for him. It's one of the most devastating pitches on the Rockies roster. We've seen it work both at elevation and at lower altitudes. So if Lawrence can really fix his mechanics and make sure that pitch is working in the way that he wants it to, cutting in the way that we want it to, there are few pitches on the roster that are quite as deadly as that one. Number 2, Pierce Johnson's curveball. Newly acquired pitcher Pierce Johnson factors into a late or middle reliever role for the Rockies, and that fastball-curveball combination is as old school as they come. Now, I know I'm cheating a little bit here because we haven't actually seen his pitch work in a Rockies uniform just yet, but I think this is one to keep an eye on because of just how effective it is. Now, I'm a big curveball guy, and I would love to see one work at altitude, and I think Pierce Johnson might be a guy to make that happen. We haven't really seen a lot of big arcing breaking pitches like that be a pitch that can be utilized as a weapon to this point, but Johnson's makeup of a guy that can throw it in any situation for effectiveness and for strikeouts figures to be exactly what the Rockies are looking for, especially right now as they sort of figure out their bullpen identity. Pierce Johnson threw that curveball 172 times last season for an average of just 225 on the curveball, again, compared to his fastball, which was hit for a 313 average. Again, just a 1-2 pitch combination, just like Justin Lawrence. But I actually think this curveball could be even more effective than Lawrence's slider just because of what it could do to mess up a hitter's timing. The fastball moves as fast as 94 miles per hour, and the curveball goes as slow as 84, 83. That 10-mile-an-hour difference is a huge deal for major league hitters, and if Pierce Johnson can make sure that his mechanics don't change too much at altitude, I think this could be a pitch that makes a big difference in the Rockies' winning records, or winning attempts at the very least, this season. Number 3, Daniel Bard's slider. You're going to hear me talk about sliders a lot on this list because it's my all-time favorite pitch, and especially one coming out of Daniel Bard's big arm. Now, obviously, we could talk about the fact that Daniel Bard throws absolute gasoline with his sinker fastball, but the slider mixed in with that fastball, just like Lawrence, is what makes him so effective. Now, of course, the slider is thrown less often than the fastball. In 2022, 497 of those sinkers versus 406 sliders, but they work in tandem with each other great. 273 average for the former and 226 for the latter. A whiff rate of 35.4% and a strikeout rate of almost 40. That means that fastball is coming in, batters are geared up waiting for it, and just when they think it's there, oh no, it's a slider, swing and a miss. They don't know what to do with it. When Daniel Bard was so effective last season, it was because he was combining those 2 pitches along with a so-so changeup to great effectiveness. There's no reason to think that Daniel Bard cannot continue to be effective with these pitches as he enters this extended stay with the Rockies after signing his contract extension last season, and now we get to see him mentor some of these younger pitchers that we're seeing join the Rockies ranks. And if they can learn something from him about how to throw these disgusting off-speed pitches at altitude, not only will this pitch itself be an incredible factor for them, but combined with his knowledge, I think we might actually see a Rockies bullpen that should be feared. Number 4 is Gavin Hollowell's slider. No points for guessing which pitch I was going to talk about with the 6'7" Hollowell, but again, this one is a pitch that we've not seen too much of, especially because Hollowell only pitched for a total of 7 innings last year. But in that time, this pitch was pretty crazy to look at. Hollowell threw this slider 57 times, and how many times was it hit by opposing batters? Goose egg. Yeah, this pitch was never touched. His fastball and sinker and cutter weren't so lucky. They were beat up a little bit, and actually what led to his 7.71 earned run average. But this pitch is legit. That huge frame of Hollowell, especially with that big arm slot that he has, almost looks like he's throwing down a hammer as he brings his arm over, and that slider cuts down and away from the plate. And when it's on, it's a terrifying pitch from a terrifying figure. Now again, sliders are going to be effective at altitude because they don't rely as much on that elevation change like a pitch like a curveball or maybe a Vulcan change or something like that. A slider cuts down and across, which is what the pitchers want, and that's why players such as Kyle Freeland and John Gray have utilized them to such effectiveness in the past. Hollowell seems to be continuing that great tradition. He's going to use that pitch to his full potential, use that giant frame of his to have it cut all the way down from starting as high as a pitcher's eyeballs all the way down to his knees. And he's going to be a big part of the Rockies bullpen next season. I think we're going to see a lot more of this pitch, a lot more of it being effective, and it slowly becoming a terrifying weapon for a player like Hollowell, who has got a lot in his arsenal, but I think this might be the one that puts people away. And number one, numero uno, it's my favorite pitch on the Rockies roster, and I bet it's yours too. It's German Marquez's knuckle curve. It's the pitch. It's the number one pitch. It's the pitch for him, and it's what has made him so effective. I've talked about it in the past, and I'm going to say it again. In 2022, when Marquez was not as effective, not as wipeout as we're used to seeing him be, this was still his pitch. This is his baby. 627 of these were thrown for an average of 162. None of his other pitches even come close to that. Hitters didn't know what to do with it. He needs to start throwing it more, if anything. We've seen its use start to decline a little bit in recent seasons, a bit of an uptick last year, but not a whole lot. But if Marquez can start mixing this pitch in more and more with the fastball, especially because the fastball, we've started to see that be the pitch that's really getting beat up by some of these opposing batters. This curveball, this knuckle curve, this monster, whatever you want to call it, is a disgusting pitch, and he's proven that even at the elevation that Coors Field is at, this is still a great pitch for him. It baffles hitters. It leaves them looking silly at times. This is the pitch that we need to see Marquez throw more and more of. And I think, as with all the other pitches I've talked about today, I know I sound like a broken record, but the Rockies might actually have something here. They've got a bullpen and pieces of rotation that could be top flight. It's because of pitches like this, and none stand above all the rest, quite like German Marquez's knuckle curveball. I'm excited to see it. I want him to bounce back, and if he's going to return to form like he was a few years ago, it's going to be this pitch that has to work for him. So, which pitches are you excited to see this coming season? Are there any that I did not mention? Any you disagree with? Let me know in the comments below. I want to hear from you. As always, check out purpleroad.com for all news, updates, articles, and content related to the Colorado Rockies, your favorite baseball team and mine. I appreciate my editor, as ever, Unknown Ballers. He's right here on Instagram. Hit him up for music, for video editing, and for birthday parties probably. And as well, myself, Mac Wilcox, CBP on Twitter right here. That is me, Mac Wilcox. Happy to chat with you about baseball, wrestling, or any other ridiculous shenanigans you can think of. Thanks again for tuning in. Appreciate you, and we'll catch you next time.